Fed up of floor robes, driven to distraction and drowning with doom boxes? Tired of living in chaos? Welcome to Decluttering Untangled, how to declutter when you're overwhelmed, ADHD or autistic. I'm going to help you uncover the secrets to decluttering, no matter what hurdles you face. You'll discover how to declutter, de-stress and transform your world. I'm Heather Tingle, reformed hoarder, neurodivergent declutter queen, and your guide through the maze of mess. Let's get untangled. Hello Untanglers, and welcome to another episode of Decluttering Untangled with me, your host, Heather Tingle. Now, today's episode has come about after I've done a little bit of exploration in my own home and my thoughts about it, and also after talking to a client about her home and our similar thoughts on this topic. So today's podcast is all about the question, is your clutter keeping you safe? Now, I'm very well aware that my job is a professional declutterer and I have lived in clutter. So I can categorically state your clutter does not keep you safe. In fact, it does the exact opposite most of the time. However, I do think there is a part of our brain way back somewhere deep that feels that clutter's a protective mechanism that is keeping us safe. And I just want to explore that with you today, give you some things to think about that maybe you can unpick if it is safe for you to do so. Now, this is not about judging ourselves. This is not about blaming or diagnosing anything. It's just about exploring things a little bit more and to be aware of, I suppose, how things are the other side in the, I've decluttered my home, but I still struggle with my brain. And there are some things that I think you might feel, are the same for you. So I am going to use myself as a little example. Now, one of my biggest frustrations and biggest sadnesses was that when I lived in clutter, I was in a permanent state of panic about people coming into my home. I did not want anybody coming in at all, full stop. Nobody at all. Hated every minute of it. I had amazing dreams and visions that once I decluttered, my house would be like party central. I would have friends around all the time. People would pop in and out for coffee. Don't like coffee, but maybe tea. And the only thing stopping that was the clutter in my home. However, I only realised this a few weeks ago after talking to my client, because I realised once I decluttered, the excuse that I gave myself was the clutter, although there's no panic now about people coming over because there was no clutter. My excuse then was, well, my house isn't done. So I needed a new kitchen, for example. So I wasn't going to invite anybody over until that was done, until the house was perfect. However, now that's almost done, I realise that the reason why I don't invite people over for like dinner parties or parties is that I don't actually like dinner parties. And my closest friends are not those type of people anyway. My friends, my real close friends, were the ones that were allowed in my home when it was cluttered and are the still same friends today. So they would still come over if they wanted to come over. There would be less panic over it. But that wouldn't be the reason why they wouldn't come over. And I do remember as well the panic over having no excuse for my daughter having a sleepover. It was almost like my heart sank and rose at the same time. I was so happy that she could have her friends over and I could say yes to the thing that she really, really wanted. And I didn't have any panic over someone coming over because the house was clean and tidy and it was decluttered. But my brain went straight to, oh no. And that's because I was then panicking over how to keep 3 teenage girls alive and fed, more importantly, for 24 hours. So yes, it was truly wonderful to be able to have a choice to let people in without fear. But maybe sometimes clutter created that physical buffer, which meant it was impossible. And it created that buffer from the outside world because something inside ourselves means it feels safer. Now, having clutter can make a space feel fuller and almost less exposed. So the amount of clients that I work with that always have their blinds or curtains drawn, and that's because they feel exposed. However, when the clutter is no longer there, and I know this with my home, it's a wonderful feeling to be open the blinds and to open the curtains and not trip over stuff and be able to reach stuff to do it. But it does feel quite exposed. Now, if we're neurodivergent, we can get that social anxiety quite badly. So even walking out the house to put something in a bin can feel like we're on show. Now, if you imagine that you don't have that nest or protective wall around you of stuff, what protects you from someone looking in through your windows? Well, the answer is nothing. And that can feel really exposing and really quite scary. And that's why a lot of the time when I'm working with clients, if they live in very full homes, the process we follow isn't like a big clear out, because that is too stark and jarring. It really does need to be, and is anyway, a gradual process so our brains can catch up with the new environment. And I do remember opening the curtains and being able to open the blinds and not worrying about it. If someone looks in, that's fine, they can look in. Not that anybody actually does, but they can, and it's okay, because my brain had time to catch up with it. So if you do a big clear out of a room, your brain probably hasn't had time to catch up, and it can feel a bit scary and a bit, I don't know, a bit isolating, a bit lonely, a bit on show. I think that's pretty common if you've experienced any kind of trauma or any kind of loss or like instability in your life. The stuff fills a void and gives you a false sense of control, which is really ironic because we feel more in control the more stuff we have, like we're covered for all eventualities, but actually living in clutter is a loss of control and is much more stressful, and we have less control over our lives as a result. I also think one of the biggest problems we have, and when I say we, I mean neurodivergent people, is that we often have really strong emotional responses and emotional connections to objects. And especially if they represent interests or memories or phases or achievements, letting go can feel like you're erasing part of yourself. So keeping everything feels safer than losing something important. And it's like these items are a visual representation of our identity and who we are. And in a world that constantly wants us to be different and we constantly feel like we've got to conform or hide part of ourselves, our home is the one place that can be us. Now, the trick with that is reducing that volume so that the items that are on display are 100% you and they don't get in the way of life and making new memories and new experiences. And that's why you're all here, I hope. But when you add into that the protective mechanism our brains have to try and keep us safe by not making mistakes, by putting things off with procrastination, then for some, clutter is it's a way to avoid hard tasks. So difficult memories, things that you're not ready to face yet, or decisions that you worry about making. But do remember that it is not laziness. It is a protective mechanism when your brain is trying to shield you from overwhelm or emotional discomfort. So it's okay to listen to it, but the most important thing is to find a way around it whilst acknowledging it. Lots of neurotypical or, people that are massively organised in their own life will tell you just do it anyway. You can't do it that way. You've got to work with your brain rather than against it. So clutter might be keeping you feeling safe, but deep down, I'm sure you're aware that it's actually doing the exact opposite. And that part of your brain is probably more aware of the fact that clutter isn't safety, is difficult, is stressful, is causing problems, is limiting you in some way. But I think it is also important to acknowledge the part of you deep down about the safety aspect of it. And there are so many other ways to feel safe than clutter and stuff, whether that is getting routines in place, whether that's having therapy, which I can highly recommend, whether that's having boundaries in place so that you feel safe around people. I think the main one, though, is self-trust, and that is what decluttering absolutely gave me. Trusting yourself feels really hard to do, and every single declutter decision you make is helping you recognize that you are your own safety net. You can be trusted, and your decisions can be trusted. And hopefully by listening to these podcasts, you're finding a way to declutter in a way that feels safe for you by following my methods. So there you go. That was quite a deep and heavy one today. I hope you're okay. So until next time, be kind to yourself. Remember, you are not alone, and keep untangling. Thanks for joining me for today's episode of Decluttering Untangled. If you found anything that I've said today helpful, please do me a favour. Hit that subscribe button or leave me a review. It's like receiving a virtual high five that keeps me going and lets me know that I'm helping real people out there and I'm making a difference. Please remember, you're not alone in this. I'm building a community of fellow untanglers over on Facebook. Just visit the show notes for the link to my free decluttering community. So until next time, remember, you're not alone, you're not lazy, you can untangle your life.